My name is Maya Torres. I'm 30 years old, and I've walked with crutches for the past 2 years, ever since the night an 18-wheeler ran a red light and changed my life forever. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. It was my father's 60th birthday. Our backyard in Denver was alive with the smell of charcoal and laughter, string lights swaying in the summer breeze. Kids chased each other between folding tables, while aunts gossiped over potato salad. It should have been perfect. I was making my way across the lawn when my sister Rachel's hand shot out and grabbed my crutch mid-stride. Enough with the act, Maya. Her voice cut through the noise like glass shattering. Everyone turned. You're not disabled. You're just lazy, bleeding mom and dad dry while the rest of us do the real work. The world tilted. My body went down hard, grass scratching my palms, dirt pressing into my cheek. The impact sent shockwaves up my damaged spine, the kind of pain that makes you forget how to breathe. But worse than the pain was the sound that followed. Laughter. Not from strangers, from my family. My cousin Tara had her phone out, filming like I was some viral prank. Uncle Mike was doubled over, slapping his knee. Even my Aunt Linda, the woman who used to braid my hair, had this ugly smirk twisting her face. I looked up at Rachel. She stood over me, arms crossed, that same cold suspicion in her eyes I'd seen for months, maybe years. My best friend Jordan was there, hand covering her mouth, frozen in shock. She knew the truth. She'd driven me to every physical therapy appointment, held my hand through every breakdown. I wanted to scream, wanted to explain that my spine was shattered in 3 places, that I'd spent 6 months relearning how to stand, that every single day was a war against my own body. But the words died in my throat. Because at the drink table, my mother was staring at the ground like if she just looked away hard enough, none of this would be happening. And my father? Still flipping burgers at the grill, laughing with the neighbors like his daughter wasn't humiliated 10 feet away. That's when I knew I was completely alone. But there was someone watching, someone who'd been silent up until now, someone who knew exactly what the truth was. And in less than 5 minutes, 6 simple words would detonate like a bomb, leaving my entire family speechless and scrambling for cover. What happens when the people who should protect you become your worst enemies? Stay with me, because what came next exposed everything.
Rachel wasn't finished. She stepped into the center of the yard like she was taking a stage, voice rising over the sizzle of the grill and the hum of conversation. Maya's been faking this whole disability routine to drain our parents' bank account. While I'm the one actually taking care of them, she's playing the victim. Her words sliced through the air. Heads turned, phones lifted. My cousin Tara zoomed in with her camera, grinning like she'd just caught breaking news. My cousin Eric, who I used to play board games with as a kid, jumped in without hesitation. I saw her at the rehab center last month, walking, no crutches, just holding the wall. My stomach dropped. Eric had seen me during a physical therapy session, struggling to take 3 steps while my therapist spotted me. 3 agonizing steps that took everything I had. And he twisted it into proof I was a liar. "That was therapy," I said, my voice shaking. "After my accident, I can't walk without—" "Don't lie to us, Maya." Aunt Linda's voice dripped with contempt. "We're not stupid." The crowd pressed closer. I felt like an insect pinned under glass, every eye dissecting me, judging me. My mother stood near the lemonade pitcher, staring at her shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. My father didn't even glance over, too busy handing a beer to some neighbor I'd never met.
Their silence hurt worse than Rachel's words. Jordan squeezed my hand, her phone steadily angled toward the chaos. I clung to her presence like a lifeline, but I was drowning. Rachel paced now, her voice climbing. She's been milking this for 2 years. Our parents are going broke paying her medical bills while she sits around doing nothing. I'm telling you, she's a con artist. Tara actually clapped, like this was entertainment. Eric doubled down. I'm serious. She looked totally fine, not even limping. I gripped my remaining crutch so hard, my knuckles went white. The accident crushed my spine, I said louder, desperate. Therapy is the only reason I can even stand. But my plea fell into a void. Tara snickered. Aunt Linda muttered, "Sure, whatever you say." My mother's shoulders slumped further. My father flipped a burger, laughing at someone's joke. I scanned the faces around me, people I'd known my whole life, searching for one single person who believed me. There was no one, except Jordan. Her grip tightened, her voice barely a whisper. "We'll fix this." I wanted to believe her, but in that moment, surrounded by my own family, I'd never felt more alone. Then I saw movement at the edge of the crowd. A figure stepped forward, calm, certain, undeniable. Everything was about to change. "She's not faking." The voice was steady, cutting through the chaos like a knife through static. Dr. Marcus Hayes stepped into the circle, my father's college roommate, my physical therapist for the past 18 months, a man whose word carried weight. And I can prove it. The backyard went silent, not the peaceful kind, the suffocating kind. The kind that presses down on your chest and makes your ears ring. Rachel's face drained of color. Tara lowered her phone. Aunt Linda's smirk vanished. Dr. Hayes pulled out his phone with deliberate calm. I record all my patients' sessions to track their progress. His thumb moved across the screen. This is from Thursday. The video played. There I was in his clinic, trembling with effort, sweat soaking through my shirt as I tried to shuffle forward with my crutches. My legs shook violently. Each step looked like I was dragging myself through concrete. My face was twisted in concentration and pain. The kind of raw, unfiltered struggle you can't fake. The crowd leaned in, their earlier certainty crumbling like wet paper. "If anyone still doubts this," Dr. Hayes said, his eyes sweeping across every face, "I have 2 years of medical records I'm happy to share." Rachel tried to speak. I was just trying to protect what?" Dr. Hayes didn't raise his voice, but the words landed like a gavel. "Your sister has documented spinal damage, 3 fractured vertebrae, nerve compression. She's fought harder than any of you know, just to stand here today." The silence was deafening. Aunt Linda tucked her phone away like it had burned her. Eric stared at the ground, his face red. Tara's hand fell to her side, her earlier excitement evaporated. My mother finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes was shame. Not support, not defense, just the horrified realization that she'd chosen keeping the peace over protecting her daughter. My father glanced over from the grill, brow furrowed, but said nothing. Jordan's whisper cut through my shock. "They're going to pay for this." Fire ignited in my chest, not from anger alone, but from something deeper. Determination, clarity, power. I wasn't the victim in this story anymore. Dr. Hayes turned to me, his voice gentle. "You don't have to stay here, Maya." I gripped my crutch and stood as tall as my broken spine would allow. Rachel reached toward me, hand trembling. "Maya, please, I didn't mean—" "You said enough."
Her hand dropped. I didn't just walk away from that backyard. I walked away from every lie they'd believed, every doubt they'd nurtured, every moment they'd failed me. And I was just getting started.
Dr. Hayes drove me straight to Denver General. Jordan sat beside me in the back seat, her jaw clenched, fire in her eyes. Aunt Linda didn't delete her video, she said quietly, patting her phone. But I've got mine. Every single second. The words settled over me like armor. At the hospital, Dr. Hayes ran a full check. No new damage from the fall, just bruising and the usual pain I'd learned to live with. His kindness stood in stark contrast to everything I'd just endured. Sitting in the exam room afterward, fluorescent lights humming overhead, I pulled out my phone and searched Disability Rights Lawyer Denver. Jordan scrolled through her contacts. I know someone, Veronica Chen. She's a shark, specializes in cases like this. I dialed before I could second-guess myself. Veronica answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and efficient. I told her everything. The party, the accusations, Rachel grabbing my crutch, the crowd filming my humiliation. She listened without interrupting, then asked 3 precise questions. This is textbook harassment and defamation, she said. We can file a civil suit for emotional distress and reputational damages. And if you want, we pursue criminal charges for assault on a disabled person. My heart pounded. How fast can we move? I'll have papers drafted by Monday. When I hung up, Jordan was grinning. I'll testify. Every word, every second of that video. The choice crystallized in front of me. For 2 years, I'd absorbed their doubts, their suspicions, their subtle implications that maybe I was exaggerating. My mother's don't make waves attitude, my father's convenient blindness, Rachel's outright accusations. No more. I'm suing her, I said aloud, testing the words. They felt right, powerful. 3 days later, Detective Sarah Ortiz knocked on Rachel's door. Jordan called me that afternoon, barely able to contain herself. You should have seen her face. She went white. Detective Ortiz had questioned Rachel about the incident, citing potential charges: assault on a disabled person, public harassment, defamation. Jordan's video was now in police hands. Official evidence. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. Maya, please. Her voice cracked. Don't sue your sister. This will destroy our family. Something cold settled in my chest. I'm suing her, Mom. You chose peace over me for 2 years. You let her question me, doubt me, accuse me. You stayed silent when I needed you to speak. But she's your sister. And I'm your daughter. I hung up. Jordan came over that night with Thai food and fierce solidarity. You're doing the right thing, she said, squeezing my shoulder. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't fighting to prove my pain was real. I was fighting to prove I mattered. And this time, I had evidence, a lawyer, a detective, and a best friend who'd go to war for me. The tables had turned, and I was done being the victim. I started the blog on a Tuesday night. At first, it was just for me, a way to process the anger and betrayal that kept me awake at 3 a.m. I titled it Standing My Ground and wrote about what happened at that party. Not with shame, with clarity. I described the moment Rachel grabbed my crutch, the sound of my body hitting the ground, the laughter that followed. I wrote about my mother's averted eyes and my father's indifference, about being surrounded by family yet feeling completely invisible. The words poured out raw and unfiltered. I didn't expect anyone to read it. By Friday, I had 200 views. By the next week, 2,000. Messages flooded my inbox. A woman with fibromyalgia thanked me for putting words to the exhaustion of constantly proving your pain is real. A man with a traumatic brain injury shared how his own family had accused him of milking it. Their stories wove into mine, creating something bigger than my own experience. I wasn't alone. Physical therapy took on new meaning. Each session with Dr. Hayes became proof, not for my family, but for myself. I pushed through exercises that left me drenched in sweat, my muscles screaming. But every small victory felt different now. I was rebuilding myself on my own terms. Jordan read every post, commenting with fire emoji support. "You're turning pain into power," she wrote under one entry. The phrase stuck with me. Veronica Chen filed the lawsuit. Detective Ortiz's investigation gathered witness statements, cousins who'd filmed, relatives who'd laughed, Eric's false testimony. The evidence was damning. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from Aunt Linda and Eric asking how I was doing with carefully worded non-apologies. I left them unread. My mother called twice more, her voice pleading. I didn't answer. Instead, I wrote. I wrote about the cost of toxic family bonds, about the difference between forgiveness and self-protection, about learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. The blog became my refuge, a place where I didn't have to defend my truth, where my disability wasn't up for debate. Readers started calling me brave. The word felt strange at first. I didn't feel brave. I felt exhausted and angry and sad. But I kept writing, kept going to therapy, kept building a life that didn't require my family's approval to be valid. One night, Jordan and I sat on my apartment balcony, city lights spread below us. "You're not the same person you were at that party," she said. She was right. That Maya had needed their belief to survive. This Maya, she was learning she didn't need them at all. And the world was starting to notice. Jordan's video went viral. It started on her social media, then spread like wildfire: Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, news aggregators. Within 72 hours, it had been viewed over 1 million times. Hashtag Disability Truth Matters trended. Comment sections exploded with outrage at my family's cruelty. Rachel's life imploded first. Her employer, a bank that prided itself on community values, terminated her within a week. Reputational damage, they called it. Former friends stopped returning her calls. Her social media became a graveyard, every post flooded with accusations and anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt empty, like watching a building collapse that I'd once called home. Aunt Linda's laughter in the video became a focal point. Commenters dissected every frame, calling her heartless and complicit. She deleted all her accounts, but screenshots lived forever. Tara sent me a letter, her handwriting shaky. "Maya, I was so wrong. I got caught up in the moment and I didn't think. I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me?" The letter sat on my kitchen table for days. I wasn't ready to respond. Detective Ortiz called with updates. Multiple witnesses had confirmed the assault. The district attorney was considering charges. But the lawsuit, that was personal. Veronica Chen was ruthless in depositions. She had Rachel on video, had witness statements, had 2 years of my medical records. The case was airtight. "She'll settle," Veronica predicted. No jury would side with her. I poured everything into my blog. Posts about living with chronic pain, about navigating a world built for able-bodied people, about the invisible nature of disability, how people only believe what they can see. The comment section became a community.
A teenager with scoliosis wrote that my words helped her stand up to bullies. A veteran with a prosthetic leg shared how his family had doubted his PTSD. An elderly woman with arthritis thanked me for making her feel seen. Their messages filled something in me that my family had hollowed out. Dr. Hayes noticed the change during our sessions. "You're carrying yourself differently," he said one afternoon, "more confident." He was right. The therapy wasn't just physical anymore. It was reclaiming my body from everyone who tried to define it for me. Jordan and I met weekly, coffee and solidarity. She'd become more than my best friend. She was my witness, my reminder that not everyone abandons you when things get hard. "You're building something real," she said, scrolling through my blog's analytics. 10,000 followers now. 10,000 people who believed me without needing proof. 10,000 people who saw my truth as valid. The viral video had exposed my family's cruelty, but my blog? That was building something they could never touch. And I was just getting started.
I saw Rachel at the clinic on a Thursday. The hum of exercise equipment filled the space, the familiar smell of antiseptic and rubber mats. I was adjusting my crutches when I noticed her by the reception desk, wearing a volunteer badge. Our eyes met across the room. She approached slowly, hands clasped in front of her like a penitent. "I'm volunteering here now," she said quietly, "trying to understand what you go through, the pain, the work." Her words hung between us, heavy with expectation. I studied her, really looked at her. The sister who'd grabbed my crutch, who'd called me a liar in front of everyone, who'd convinced herself I was the villain in her story. "That's good," I said evenly, "but this isn't about you." I turned toward the therapy room without waiting for her response. Jordan, who'd come with me, caught up and squeezed my arm. "Perfect," she whispered. In the therapy room, I pushed through my routine with focus Dr. Hayes had taught me over 18 months. Each movement was proof, not for Rachel, but for myself. Later that night, my phone lit up. Mom texting, "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" I stared at the message. It was gentle, careful, but it wasn't an apology. It wasn't accountability. It was her testing the waters, seeing if enough time had passed for me to forget. I set the phone down without responding. Keeping my distance wasn't about punishment. It was about protection, about choosing peace over people who'd proven they couldn't be trusted with my heart.
My blog had become my real family. Readers sent messages daily. People with MS, cerebral palsy, chronic fatigue, invisible illnesses. They shared their stories, their struggles, their small victories. A woman in Seattle invited me to speak at a disability rights conference. A journalist asked to interview me for a health advocacy magazine. My voice, the one that had been drowned out at that party, was reaching people who actually wanted to listen. Veronica called with news. Rachel had offered to settle. "Significant financial compensation," she said, "and a formal public apology." "I'll think about it," I told her. Because here's what I'd learned. Justice isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's about walking away with your dignity intact. Jordan and I celebrated my blog hitting 15,000 followers that weekend. Over wine and takeout, she raised her glass. "To choosing yourself," she said. I clinked my glass against hers. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't defined by my family's doubts. I was defined by my own strength. And that was everything.
1 year later, I stood in a small auditorium in downtown Denver, holding a glass plaque. The Colorado Disability Alliance had given me their Community Advocacy Award for raw, honest storytelling that gives voice to the invisible. The applause washed over me. Advocates, allies, people I'd never met who believed in the work I was doing. It was the opposite of that backyard party, the opposite of silence and doubt. This was validation I'd earned, not begged for. My blog had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. 25,000 followers, guest posts on national platforms, speaking invitations from universities and advocacy groups. But more than numbers, it was the messages that mattered. A college student wrote that my posts gave her courage to request disability accommodations. A single father with chronic illness said my words helped him explain his condition to his kids. A woman in her 60s thanked me for proving it's never too late to find your voice. I'd turned my pain into purpose. My phone rang that evening. Mom's name on the screen. Maya? Her voice was soft, tentative. I want to make things right. Really right this time. Will you come to a family dinner? I paused, looking out my apartment window at the city lights. Who will be there? I asked. Everyone. Rachel, your father, your aunts and uncles. Tara wrote you that letter. She really wants to apologize in person. And Aunt Linda? Eric? Silence. They're still processing. I closed my eyes. Mom, I need peace. Not another gathering filled with people who may or may not believe me. But we're family. You chose keeping the peace over protecting me. For 2 years, you let Rachel's doubts poison everything. You stayed silent when I needed you most. My voice was steady, not angry, just honest. I can't pretend that's okay. Mom, please. I love you, Mom, but I'm not coming back to that. I hung up gently.
Jordan came over later with coffee and understanding. How do you feel? She asked. Free, I said, surprised by the truth of it. The lawsuit had settled months ago, Rachel's public apology and financial compensation that I'd donated to disability advocacy organizations. Detective Ortiz had closed her investigation after Rachel completed community service. But none of that mattered as much as this. I had rebuilt my life on my terms. Physical therapy wasn't about proving anything anymore. Writing wasn't about defending myself. I was simply living, authentically, unapologetically, powerfully. The award sat on my shelf, but the real victory was the person I'd become. And I was just getting started.
6 months after the award, I gave my first keynote speech. The Colorado Convention Center was packed. Disability advocates, healthcare workers, people with lived experience. As I stood at that podium, crutches beside me, I thought about how far I'd come. My sister once grabbed my crutch and called me a liar in front of my entire family, I began. And you know what? That moment of humiliation became my catalyst. I spoke about toxic family dynamics, about the cost of staying in relationships that require you to constantly prove your worth, about learning that sometimes love means letting go. You don't owe anyone access to your life, not even family, if they refuse to respect your truth. The audience was silent, leaning forward. Your disability is valid. Your pain is real. And you don't need anyone's permission to protect yourself. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. Afterward, dozens of people approached me. A young man in a wheelchair thanked me through tears. A mother whose daughter had chronic pain hugged me tight. An elderly woman simply said, "You gave me permission to walk away." That night, I updated my blog with a final reflection. Here's what I learned. Strength isn't staying in toxic situations hoping people will change. Strength is choosing yourself even when it costs you everything. My family doubted me. They laughed at my pain, questioned my truth, stayed silent when I needed them most. I could have spent years trying to win them back, proving myself over and over. Instead, I built a new life, a better life.
I found my voice, my community, my purpose, and I discovered something radical. I don't need the people who hurt me to validate my existence. If you're reading this and you've been dismissed, doubted, or betrayed by people who should have protected you, please hear me. Your truth doesn't require their approval. Walk away if you need to. Build your own family from people who see you. Use your pain as fuel for something beautiful. That's not giving up. That's survival. That's power. Choose yourself. Always. The post went viral, shared 50,000 times in 3 days. Jordan texted me a simple message, "You changed the world, Maya." I looked at the award on my shelf, at the emails from people whose lives had shifted because of my story, at the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Rachel had tried to break me. Instead, she'd freed me. And now I was helping others find their freedom too.